Okay, so let's start with that. Tell me again about Madeline's great horror with the difference in ages.
Well, she said one time that when they would go out in public, people might think that she was my mother because she was already very tall. And my mother was older, an older mother. And so people thought my mother was my grandma and Madeline was my mother. And in 1960, you know, it's not like it is today. So she was a little mortified, I think.
I can imagine. Absolutely. So take me back to, some of your first memories of your family and what you noticed maybe about the relationship between Madeline and each of your parents.
Oh, that's a hard one because I was 4 or 5 when Madeline got married. And so I really don't remember life at home with Madeline living there very much. Um, so when she went off to college, she graduated in 1964 from high school, and I was only 3, I guess, I was going to turn 4 that year. And so when she went off to college, I just don't have any memories of her living at home.
So
So
from then forward, as you were, growing up and getting older, what did you notice, even Madeline from far away, and she really was because she was traveling everywhere with Dick. So
yeah.
what did you notice about her relationship with your father in particular, which I heard was incredibly, incredibly strong and that they were very, very similar. Is that true?
Yes, I would think they were very similar. Yes. She was not like my mother. She was more like my father,
And
definitely.
in what specific ways?
I don't know. It's hard to put nobody's ever asked me that.
Yeah,
Um,
I've heard because I've done a bunch of interviews so far. I've just heard that they had incredibly similar personalities. That she really kind of looked to him for inspiration because he was a very firm person, to say
he
the
was
least.
very firm. He was a hard worker, very family oriented, though, wanted the best for all of us. Wanted us to have more than he ever had. He grew up with an abusive stepfather, um, didn't know his real father, that kind of thing. They were so similar, especially in looks too. Madeline's, I don't know, 5'11" or so. She's not really that tall, but she's very tall. And Pam and I are short, so she took after my dad. He was almost 6'5", and so just the similarities there. But I think just the work ethic, the strong personalities. My mother was more the emotional type, and that's not Madeline, I don't think. Not saying that in a bad way, but that's just not her. So yeah, she did take after my dad in personality traits a lot, I think.
What stories do you remember? And again, I know you were a younger child and she was, having children and moving around the country, but certainly she had things that you observed both with the birth of Alexis, which was a real challenge, and then the very early unfortunate death of Alexis. In terms of that, what did you maybe take from Madeline and what you observed about how she handled all of that?
Well, I think she handled it with like for example, with this move we're experiencing, our house is not, we just found out Friday, our house will not be ready on December 10th, which is when we need to leave our old house. So we're going to be homeless and it won't be ready till after Christmas. So I was pretty upset, where are we going to have Christmas? Boo-hoo. And then I did think about Madeline and all the years that Dick was gone, the years she spent Thanksgiving, Christmas, holidays without Dick or without family even. She couldn't always come home to Texas. And so sometimes she was, whatever state they were in, and Dick was gone. And so you have, when I thought of that, I thought, okay, you have it easy. And so I admire her for that, especially with Alexis when she was little. I know she and Dick, they worked their tails off with Alexis when she was little to teach her to read. And I mean, not read novels or books, but, teach her things.
To get her as far as she could possibly go, right?
Yes. And they worked with her all the time. And that was such a blessing for Alexis. So just her strength, and dealing with that, then they had Matthew, so she had 2 kids, one with special needs, and a husband in the Navy who was gone for weeks and months at a time. That had to have been hard. That had to have been very difficult, but she did it.
So even today, you find inspiration from her. What would you use if you, is it resilience? Is it being hopeful, positive? What are some of the traits that you think
I think
helped her?
resilience, yeah, and a positive attitude. Reaches out for guidance, I think, from people, not afraid to, to seek help when she needs help. And I think that's a good trait to have. Yeah.
Was your father kind of the same way? Like people talk about Madeline and their lives kind of being their rock, the person who, when you need them, she's there no matter what. If anybody needs her, she's there no matter what. And was your father like that too? Is that how they're similar?
Yes, my father was definitely like that. He was, he was just the kind, if you needed him, we called him Daddy. And so even my brother, and, when my brother was a grown man, he called him Daddy. They were mother and daddy, which seems weird to call her mother. But anyway, he was there. Drop of a hat, he was there if you needed him. I was fortunate, I guess, that when Madeline and Dick got married and moved all over the country, I got to travel then. So we saw them. We drove to South Carolina with our trailer. We drove to Florida. We drove to California. We drove to Virginia. And so, my parents made sure that that they were a part of our lives always. I think we made 2 or 3 trips to California, 2 or 3 to Virginia, a couple to South Carolina. So we made sure that he made sure we had that connection. And I think that was really important to him.
And so in the same way, Madeline is kind of like that, right? I mean, do you see an effort from her, even though she was, very occupied with moving all over the country, having a disabled child, having 2 children, trying to work? Is she someone who's really worked hard to make sure that she stays connected with you?
I think so. Yeah, we used to, when Alexis lived in Texas for a while. So Pam and I were really close, grew really close to her. She was in San Antonio. And when Matthew was growing up, Madeline would send him down. I guess it was, I don't know, 3 or 4 different summers. He would come visit us, and Pam and I would take turns, you know, on the entertainment committee. So yeah, staying connected in that way. And I went out to visit her probably 2 or 3 or 4 times by myself, when I was in high school and then when I was in college. So yeah, I think we made an effort to stay connected. And I think a lot of that was because of my parents and my dad. And he wanted that. He didn't grow up in a stable household, and he wanted that for us.
Oh, that's so sweet. Absolutely so sweet. So when you
Yeah.
look back, hearing that you got close to Alexis, which was very fortunate, what did you see of Madeline when Alexis passed? Which just is an unimaginable thing, especially having it be so sudden. What did you see of her at that time?
Strength, strength. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I found out, my mother was hesitant to tell me, and that night we had taken my daughter to her kindergarten orientation, and my mother said, "I have something to tell you." And she told me Alexis was in the hospital. I immediately called Madeline. I said, "Do you need us there?" And so my mother went, I went, Pam went, as soon as we could. I think my mom and I went the next day. Pam went, I think, the day after. We were there for her. But incredible strength. I don't know how she did it, but she did.
So now, can you think of anything else that maybe you have a memory you want to share, or?
Well, I do, and I dug this out of a trunk and brought it to school with me today, because this is my favorite memory of Madeline and Dick. They took me to my very first concert, Barry Manilow, 1978. And I don't know if you've ever been to Texas, San Antonio in particular, but to get out of the state can take hours, all day to get out of the state of Texas. And I remember they were living in Virginia and the concert was in Maryland. So just going to another state was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. And it was in an amphitheater in Maryland. Madeline had I think she had broken her ankle. She was on crutches. And it was just the 3 of us. And it was still to this day the best concert I've ever been to. We had so much fun. They bought me the t-shirt, the program book. It was so much fun. I'll never forget that.
The fact that you had that poster is just genius. That
Yes,
is
my program book.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. I'll tell you what, I love him. I absolutely love him to this
Well,
day.
and I've been to many concerts since then, the Eagles, Elton John, Fleetwood Mac, but I have to say that is still the best concert I've ever been to. The showmanship and just the excitement of my very first concert, and Madeline and Dick treating me to these things. I grew up where we went like to Disney World or Disneyland. You got one thing, one souvenir. And so they bought me the t-shirt, the book, and I'm sure food and drinks. And I mean, it was magical. Laid a blanket out on the ground, and it was really fun.